Today, we're going to talk about cannabis and what happens when Mexico goes legal, the opportunities involved with that, as well as what's going on in South Dakota, kind of taking a step back, New Mexico taking a step forward. So, we're going to round off with who's illegal and then which states are legal, all coming up. Welcome back to the Talking Hedge. I'm Josh Kincaid, capital markets analyst and host of your cannabis business podcast. Today we got Katrina Gogowski, angel investor and attorney. Thanks for being back on the Talking Hedge.
Thanks, Josh.
Yeah, let's talk about Mexico, some of the opportunities that are kind of coming up from there. Benzinga had an article coming out and they cited Poseidon Asset Management in the article. So they talk about that it's not clear about what companies are able to take advantage of the Mexican market. But Emily Paxia of Poseidon Asset Management said that she's aware of some public Canadian companies and a couple private US companies looking to get involved. She didn't identify which ones, but she said most of the big US multi state operators are too busy, that they've already gotten into a lot of debt obligations and funding rounds. And so they're up to their eyeballs in the United States, so they're not really able to take advantage of Mexico. However, she thinks that some of the smaller companies with medical or scientific focus could set up shop in Mexico. Some players, especially Canadian ones, have talked up the opportunities, but she suspects that has more to do with attracting headlines than actually getting involved.
Well, Josh, I would be very surprised if Mexico opens their borders to either Canadian or U.S. Companies to process marijuana in their country, because you're looking at import export there, which is still not legal with the United States, maybe with Canada, and Mexico has historically been fairly possessive of their land. For example, just a general US citizen cannot own land in Mexico. You can do these complicated land trusts, but you can't own it free and clear. So I would suspect that Mexico will be a little bit more protectionary. Did I just make up a word? Than Canada, but that may change if they need an influx of capital. So we'll see what happens. And once they publish the regs, we'll see who can and can't go into Mexico. And then we have, of course, the question of whether you want to go into Mexico or not. So that's for another day, Josh.
Right. Yeah. I mean, just really kind of talking about just on the surface level of opportunities in Mexico is there's still a heavy stigma because of all of the cartels down there. So a lot of people in Mexico are not going to buy pre-rolls, for example. They might buy vape pens or tinctures or topicals or edibles. You're not probably going to see a lot of flour initially, which is very contradictory to what we've seen in all of North American rollouts, where flour and pre-rolls are predominant sellers, with the exception of conservative areas like Arizona, where you're seeing a lot more vape pens. So I would look at that as kind of a model of what products you might be able to get away with in Mexico. But like the article mentioned, it's going to be heavily dominated by the pharmaceuticals and the benefits of that. Those are low margins, and you got to be a big player. So I'm not sure it's going to be really something where a San Diego company, for example, could just hop 20 minutes to the south and be successful. It's not going to be like that. I think this is something where you're going to see a lot of failures because people are trying to go in and they aren't able to maybe get the medical um, uh, authorization, whatever the equivalent of the FDA is, or Health Canada, to be able to have the advertising and wherewithal to have claims.
Well, Josh, I would expect there to be caution across the board given the rush into Latin America and then the subsequent withdrawal, especially of the Canadian Big Five out of Latin America. So I think that it'll be a little bit more cautious this time, and we'll just have to wait and see.
I would just like to close out with this segment and say that I'd like to see Mexican brickweed in 1 pound blocks of really sticky, icky cannabis And then it just like sticks together. So I would like to see something new and different, but a spin off the old, maybe. I don't know. Someone's going to come up with something good though. Maybe Cheech and Chong and their dispensarias will be popular down there. Have no idea. What's
Those,
not, yeah, we'll see. What's not popular is medical cannabis in South Dakota. So apparently there's a governor that wants to restrain the medical cannabis laws. So the governor early on attempted to delay the state's medical cannabis program. Now she's trying to add restrictions to the voter approved law. Um, so yeah, kind of one of those areas. Montana was one of the only states that had medical, and then the governor kind of came in and said, nope, not going to do it. So something to do with those Canadian border states where they're just like, nope, we're going to do our own thing. Don't care about the voters. So the governor's proposal would require support from 2/3 of both legislative chambers to suspend the rule. And the legislature is scheduled to adjourn on March 29th, but could call for a special session. So they're trying to kill this voter approved recreational bill. Whether or not it happens, I think it's kind of a mute point because it's just kind of progressing throughout the country. So this is just a delay, if anything else, in my opinion.
I agree. I think, wasn't it South Dakota that the citizen initiative was a little, what was written a little poorly? So they had multiple provisions in one law, and that was unconstitutional. We've seen that before,
Vermont, maybe.
especially. Hmm?
Was that Vermont?
Maybe it was Vermont. Um, I don't know. There's so many these days. I can't remember. And so hopefully they're just trying to clean that up. But if they're trying to restrict the will of the voters, I think they're going to have a hard time because the voters will just turn around and clean up the bill, assuming there was an issue with the bill, and vote it in again. We see this in Washington over and over again. If the will of the voters is not adhered to, they just voted in again.
Yeah, well, first they're going to vote that governor out in 2 to 4 years, and then they'll vote it back in. So again, it's just a simple delay. That person is trying to, yeah, put their own opinions on what the will of the people are. But that's not what happens in New Mexico. That governor is actually calling for a special session to get all those people off the couches and back in and do their job. So they want to focus on adult use cannabis. So Governor Michelle Grisham, as expected, is calling for a special legislative session to try and get adult use cannabis legislation past the finish line. They're going to start that on March 30th. So that would be tomorrow, I guess, at the time of taping. So Senate leaders, they decided to turn the pressing matters in the final 2 days of the regular session that ended March 20th. And so they're going to kind of move forward, hopefully considering the short session, they'll be able to pass that, but not really sure how effective that's going to be. But I guess it's good just to get that out there, making it a priority.
Yeah, absolutely, Josh. You and I have discussed on this podcast multiple times that states are desperate, absolutely desperate for the tax dollars that legalized cannabis brings and the jobs that legalized cannabis brings to the state. And so the fact that the New Mexico legislature is really pushing forward is a good sign. Hopefully it doesn't take 4 years to actually issue the first license, because that'll be kind of ridiculous at this point. But again, legalization in and of itself is a good move. And my recollection is that New Mexico is already a medical cannabis state. So this shouldn't be difficult for them to pass this legislation.
Yeah, hopefully not. Hopefully it doesn't take like 3 years like Vermont was talking about.
Right.
All right, so let's take a look and see who's legal, who's not. So fully illegal is Idaho, Kansas, Nebraska, and American Samoa. So that's a total of 6.7 thousand people that have zero access. Unfortunately.
That's millions, Josh.
What did I say? 6.7 thousand?
Yep.
Did I really? What does 6.7 thousand even mean? Anyways, 6.7 million. Thank you. Yeah, it's Monday. English is struggling in my mouth. So third degree states, population of 89 million. That includes Alabama and Georgia, Indiana, Iowa, Kentucky, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Wisconsin, Wyoming. So that means they have severely limited access. So hopefully that'll change pretty soon. Kentucky, I've mentioned, is the most underfunded state for their pension plan. So just count on them to, as soon as Mitch McConnell gets out of the way, boom, done. Medical use only, there's 117 million people in a whole slew of states that have medical use. And then, of course, with adult recreation, we've got 17 states plus DC.
And Guam and the Mariana Islands.
Right. Yeah.
Josh, this chart is very telling. And you and I talk about federal legalization and the normalization of cannabis. And if you look at this chart, the great majority of the population in the United States already has access to legal cannabis on a recreational or medical basis. And these holdout states, there's just so few holdouts left. Idaho, you can say what you want about Idaho. Yeah, Idaho, it is what it is. And they might be the last to fall. But if you see here, Texas is in the yellow zone. And my prediction has always been once Texas falls, the rest will fall with Texas. And so I would suspect legalization on the ballot or on the legislative agenda in this year or next at the latest for Alabama, Georgia, Indiana, Iowa, Kentucky, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Wisconsin, and Wyoming. There, I gave you the states so you can call me and yell at me that I was wrong, but I think I'm going to be right.
Yeah, the fact that Louisiana is medical use only, and so is Mississippi and Missouri, and that's pretty telling right there. So only 6.7 million people fully illegal versus 120 that are recreational use is telling right there. And then, so here's another map, just kind of show you in a different light who is adult use, who's medical use, and who's severely limited. It's a very small little bubble here by comparison. So Puerto Rico, they're already on board with medical use. Hopefully they'll go rec, but down there it's kind of got to go with what you can get. All in all, on the severely limited list, I think the next person, like you mentioned, Texas, and the other state after that, Kentucky, and yeah, the rest are just gonna fall like dominoes.
Yeah, we're gonna see it, Josh, because there's gonna be FOMO. These states that are on the severely limited list are surrounded by legal states. They're missing out on the tax revenue. They're missing out on the jobs, and the residents of their states are just driving to the next county or the next state and getting their cannabis and coming back. So these states will fall. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah. Let us know which state you think is going to be dead last. Is it going to be Idaho? Let us know. With that, we're going to roll this one up. I want to thank my guest, Katrina Glogowski, angel investor and attorney. Thanks again for being on the Talking Hedge.
Thanks, Josh.
Appreciate it. I'm Josh Kincaid. This is the Talking Hedge. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or don't. And I'm out. Don't forget to smash that like button on your way out and check out these other videos that we've got.